Ram is the slightly off meta weapon of choice in Warzone, where if you use a marksman rifle to make up for the mid-range, or a teammate can, to cover that gap, you would drop people quicker than most ARs up close, and in multiplayer it is a dependable choice for 6v6 and can drop people super quick. The amount of kills I have on this in multiplayer is dirty. I made this thing along with an EBR for ages before Warzone came out, so in this video we're going to be comparing it against the new FINN LMG. Straight away, using this with the adverse barrel, it's going to be right up there in the Rams space in the meta. Hello everybody, I'm Shadow's Rain, and if you do end up enjoying this video, make sure you hit that like button and consider subscribing. This video was meant to be out yesterday, but I've been very ill to the point where I couldn't really talk, so yeah, here it is now. My voice does sound a bit groggy, do apologise, still a little bit ill, but I can talk. Cue the title card. We're going to be breaking down these weapons individually, then directly comparing them against each other. If you would like to skip to a specific bit, I have made some lovely timestamps for you in the description. Craigie loves you. To start, we'll quickly go over the Ram. You know what it's all about: mediocre damage, really high fire rate, and a fair bit recoil to deal with for people trying to friend zone you. You can get a 50 round mag, which requires an attachment slot. We'll get into the value of that later on. In Warzone, it uses the magnificent assault rifle ammo, and there's a fair few versions of the Ram which you can pick up, making the gun accessible in Warzone, and you can get a feel of how it performs in Warzone before you actually make a class in it. It's a much better choice in multiplayer, as you're not going to have to be in a situation where you're in a long-range, drawn-out fight. Even if you are, with the 100 HP you have, you can usually nick a kill or two at range in multiplayer, but otherwise this is your rocket in your pocket in Warzone. Recoil attachments and long barrel attachments are required on this one, however. There is a sick SMG build for it. Well, it's not actually an SMG build, but you use it in those situations, it can mangle up close. I'll show you that later on in the build section of the video. It has its own place in the meta, but its only main criticism is that 50 round mag. Other guns, this would be great, like the Scar or SOCOM M4, but for this weapon, it's not quite enough purely for how quickly you're going to burn through it. I would really like to see a 60 round mag here. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. 860 RPM is a really high rate of fire, which this gun gives you. However, if you do get a neat little headshot multiplier with this weapon, taking a damage to 43 instead of the usual max damage of 28, which is important in the direct comparison, which we'll get onto when we get into the direct comparison section. It has a really nice iron sight though, not the cleanest, but it's adequate for the Ram, especially in the SMG build. But the only thing I don't like about it is that at range it does feel like a bit of a hit marker machine. But with that being said, so does the other weapon featured in today's video. But this weapon rewards you massively for using it in situations where it's meant to be used. You do need to pick your fights with this type of weapon though, making the situation suit you. It's strong, and in the right hands it'll break down anything that you put in front of it. I'll break down the benefits of using this kind of weapon later, as the FINN has the same benefits and drawbacks. Now let's have a little rock at the two ways you can rock this. So the first class that we're going to be showing you today is going to be the normal Warzone class. So for this particular Ram, I'm running the monolithic suppressor, the FSS Ranger barrel, the Merc foregrip, the 50 round mags, and the PBX Hollow 7 sight. Now this gives you a good little solution to all that recoil problems that you're going to be having. It does give you a lot of extra range to be dealing with slightly longer encounters. Still a little bit of a hit marker machine, but it is going to be helping out a lot. Don't know why this sight is on there though. I'm just I think I've picked the wrong one, you know, there when I click on something. It matters not. But yeah, so yeah, this is how I'm running that in Warzone, along with a marksman rifle. Can use a sniper rifle for that, but I do just like to have that little mid-range gap covered as well. Then the rest of my team can do sniping stuff. So yeah, it's pretty much how I'm running that particular setup. Next, for the multiplayer setup, I am going to show you this Ram-7, which is my little SMG variant, making it as quick as possible. Monolithic suppressor, 13.5 inch barrel, 50 round mags, 5mm laser, and the close quarters stock. This is going to make it like an SMG, absolutely ripping your opponents apart. Really fun class. Probably is only be used on the shorter maps, but yeah, I really enjoy this one for multiplayer. Give it a go. Now let's talk about the adverse FINN. The normal fin won't be discussed here, it's not really applicable in this discussion, purely because it's in a completely different area of the meta. I've not used loads of the regular fin because it's only been out a few days, and I've just hammered the adverse so I can have as much experience with it as possible for this video. So let's break it down. The adverse barrel removes a lot of the fin's range and recoil attributes, and gives you an extra 400 RPM in fire rate, which is around a 75% increase from the base variant. That's mental, like actually mental. We're now over 1000 RPM, that is ridiculous. I need a bit of time to get over that, man. Big oof. It's about 26 damage, dropping off to 22 at range. If you're hitting your shots, it doesn't matter what range you're at, as long as you can contain that recoil, much like the Ram. Obviously, you need an attachment slot to make this work, but it's well worth it. That attachment being the adverse barrel, of course. When you do this though, your mindset needs to go from I'm using an LMG to I'm using an AR. Your starting ammo is 75 without any attachments, which is really nice. And to briefly mention the armor options too, on this weapon you can go up to 100, which is nice, and also you get a unique attachment on this weapon. You can have an ammo attachment which improves the handling, but in a different way. It's the same amount of ammo as your normal options, but it's a lighter ammo. CP rounds, I believe it's called, and you use them for maximal handling. It does cost you some bullet velocity in my opinion, but I'll get more into the builds soon. But it does speed up the handling, and for me that is really important for this weapon. Much like the Ram, you need to make fights suit you, but with a couple of recoil attachments, this doesn't kick an awful lot more than the Ram does with all the recoil attachments, as you'd expect. I actually find it quite manageable to use this gun compared to the Ram, to be honest, because the Ram tends to rattle a bit more, whereas the adverse barrel fin just tends to just go up, just bounce a little bit, but nowhere near as much as the Ram. So what's the downside to this weapon then? Well, it has no headshot multiplier. A bullet to the head does no more damage than a bullet to the body, which really sucks. Sucks harder than a professional actually. Massive disappointment, matched only by the latest Star Wars trilogy. Bullet velocity feels like it's substantially weaker on the fin in this way. This just makes it a much slower bullet basically. It takes longer to travel and basically delays how long it's going to take to deliver its payload. Wink. Just sometimes bear in mind the Ram's bullet velocity isn't amazing either, so think of that point what you will. So now you've heard the spiel, let's look at how I set these classes up and we'll get to comparing the two. My Warzone class for this gun is as follows. So it's going to surprise you a little bit, but I'm using the monolithic suppressor because you've got to use that. The XRK long shot, adverse, the Merc foregrip, the TAC laser, and no stock. I'm not running a sight on this weapon because personally I don't really think it needs it. I think it's quite clean enough as it is. And if you look at the stats, I've actually improved everything, including the recoil. So think of that what you will. And yeah, it's really clean. You can put a sight on there if you want to get rid of the stock. If you do choose to do that, let's just use that one for example, you are going to be hurting the mobility a little bit, but it's still going to be fairly decent mobility because that TAC laser does speed it up quite a lot, and it's not actually a slow LMG to begin with. So just bear that in mind for when you're taking your fights up close. The next class that I've got to show you for it is going to be the multiplayer class. We're just going all speed for this one. We're using the Harrier adverse barrel, the monolithic suppressor, the Merc foregrip, and no stock. I am using the monolithic suppressor just so I've got a little bit extra range, just because this takes range off it, so it's going to help out a lot in that regard. Pretty straightforward class, to be honest. And yeah, let's get into the rest of the video and actually compare them both directly, and let's get right into that. So let's get right into the nitty gritty. Both these weapons want your attention in Warzone, but you can't use both because they both do the same thing. Unlike other videos where the argument is, it's close so it depends on you, this one's not going to have that edge. This one's going to have a definite answer for you, which is something that we try to do regularly here at the A1A. So for more of that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Ding! So yeah, we need to have a look into the value here. The amount of bullets that you can hold in reserve is limited in Warzone, and the amount of damage that you can do with a bullet is important because it dictates how long you can sustain a team fight for. For example, one M67 AMAX bullet to the head can do about 100 damage, whereas a bullet that does 18 damage for the same bullet isn't as valuable. But this is balanced by the time to kill and pure lethality of a weapon if it has a high rate of fire, if it burns ammo quickly. Value isn't king, but it should be taken into consideration. Ideally, if you can find something that's valuable and usable, then you're onto a winner. This is why the Odin and the Season 4 Foul seem to be like monsters. They could sustain fights for days. Point is, the Ram and Adverse Finn are not valuable picks for ammo, so you need a mental time to kill to make up for it, which, thankfully, both these weapons have. So, now technically the Adverse Barrel is going to drop people quicker, but the argument isn't as simple as that. Let's have a little bit more of a look into it, shall we? In your max damage ranges, your Adverse is going to drop people super quick and quicker than a Ram. In Warzone, you need to put attachments of extended mags on the Ram. You don't really need me to tell you why. You also desperately need some form of recoil control in this bad boy too. So that's 2 attachments that are absolutely necessary. With a sight and a monolithic suppressor, you're left with 1 spare attachment, which is probably going to be a barrel. Because it's a bullpup rifle, you can't remove the stock either, which is unfortunate. Would have loved that option on my SMG build. But for the Adverse attachments, you need the barrel. You can also turn this into an SMG too, which is mental. And you absolutely should do it for a laugh and a change of pace. If you're happy going for a double AR and you're happy having a metric F-ton of ammo boxes, yeah, go for it. So getting back to reality, you're going to be needing to use this as an AR. So you're going to use the longest Adverse Barrel for the recoil, range, and fire rate. That's obviously the attachment you need to make this Adverse Barrel work. From there, you will want an additional recoil attachment. Now, I think it's best to make your gun lighter, but you may disagree. The reason I'm making this lighter is, remember, so I can take fights in ranges where I'm competing with people in SMG territory. So I need to have an ADS and handling that matches. This weapon is quite unique, as if you react the slowest, you can still drop somebody if they've shot verse with some LMGs and some ARs in your insta-kill range. The only real threat in your workable range is a shotgun and a Ram, and I'll get to why a Ram in a second. Unless it's a shotgun range and they have an SMG, yeah, you're fine. So you make this quick and you give yourself a chance of competing with the shotguns and the SMGs. So yeah, Ram build recoil, Adverse build speed. There is a factor that we do need to talk about though, and I have been alluding to it for a little while, and that is the headshots. Ram is going to drop quicker than an Adverse if you hit headshots. That's a problem for the Adverse Barrel, as it does no additional headshot damage, which I still find utter BS in my opinion, and it makes this conversation a little bit harder. It is filthy good how quick you can drop someone with headshots from the Ram. Utter carnage. Only thing I don't like about it is that it's a lot of recoil to control, and you've got to make the gun heavier to control it, and that really hurts your ADS speed, and that really hurts your ability to get up close to these SMG and shotgun users and rock their world. Yeah, it can be countered with attack laser, but that that's still, it's going to come at the cost of either recoil control or recoil stabilization, because the Ram bounces both up and wobbles as well, meaning you need both recoil stabilization and recoil control, and it really hurts its reliability to hit those shots. This is why I think the Adverse Barrel gets the edge in this battle. The edge in this battle. You can take the stock off and still whip people to oblivion with the controllable vertical recoil. Basically, you can make it faster than a Ram and have similar recoil, if not better recoil, so that pretty much says it all for me. To use both guns, you need to just be mindful of ammo, to not be mindful of ammo, and just go for it. Bullet velocity feels slower as mentioned on the Adverse Barrel, but you shouldn't be using it at a range for that to be a massive issue anyway. Same goes for the Ram really. It's for these reasons I pick the Adverse over the Ram. Now remember everybody, the Ram will still put you down quicker with headshots, but that is literally the only advantage that it has at the moment. That, and you can use the underbarrel launchers or shotgun, which is severely underrated in my opinion. I think the FINN Adverse LMG has more benefits than the Ram, but remember, that's my opinion. What's yours? Let me know in the description below. Again, sorry for the lack of uploads lately. I have been quite ill over the past couple of weeks, but we're coming out the other end of it now, and yeah, the Ram was a brilliant pick in this area of the meta and still has a place if you're still good at getting those headshots. Remember, it's a game, have fun first and win second, but until then, I'm Shadows Rain, and I'll see you in the next one. What do you want to see next? Let me know in the comments below. Peace